Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly command wealth, while others remain trapped in endless cycles of asking, hoping, and waiting? Why certain individuals can speak a single word and watch their reality shift, while you've been repeating affirmations for months with little more than pocket change to show for it? The answer lies not in what you've been saying, but in how you've been positioning yourself in relation to the universe itself. Right now, within arm's reach, sits the most powerful manifestation tool you've never recognized. It appears so ordinary, so commonplace, that you've likely dismissed it as mere decoration in your daily routine. Yet this simple object holds the capacity to transform your entire relationship with abundance in a way that bypasses years of traditional manifestation work. I'm speaking of water, not as something you drink mindlessly, but as a living conductor of divine command that can restructure your financial reality within 48 hours. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. Every financial struggle, every bill that arrived at the worst possible time, every moment you've stared at your bank balance wondering how others make it look so easy, all of it has been preparation for this revelation. The universe has been guiding you toward this understanding that what you've called manifestation is actually a sacred science of commanding reality rather than begging it for favors. Water remembers everything. Science has proven that water molecules form crystalline structures based on the vibrations they encounter. Ancient civilizations knew this truth intuitively, using water as a sacred medium for transmitting divine will into physical form. But here's what those civilizations understood that modern manifestation teachers have forgotten. Water doesn't respond to your requests. It responds to your commands. It doesn't react to your hopes. It crystallizes around your authority. When you hold a glass of water and speak to it as a supplicant, asking the universe to please grant your wishes, you're programming limitation into the very medium that should be carrying your power. But when you hold that same glass and speak as someone who already possesses divine authority over their circumstances, everything changes. The water becomes not a messenger of your desperation, but an amplifier of your dominion. Genevieve Behrend knew this secret. She understood that the physical world operates on hierarchies of command, and that most people position themselves at the bottom of that hierarchy by approaching abundance as beggars rather than as rightful heirs to infinite supply. She discovered that certain words, spoken with absolute authority into water, don't create prosperity. They command it into visibility from the realm where it already exists, complete and waiting for your recognition. This is not about positive thinking or visualization or any of the gentle manifestation techniques that have kept you hoping instead of having. This is about claiming your divine right to command the elements themselves to serve your highest good. It's about understanding that you are not asking the universe for anything. You are informing it of what is already established in the realm of absolute truth. If you're ready to stop being a spiritual beggar and start being a divine commander, show your commitment by doing 3 things right now. First, like this video to signal your readiness for transformation. Second, leave a comment with these 3 powerful words. Wealth obeys me, because speaking this declaration publicly begins your shift from requesting to commanding. Third, subscribe to this channel, because you're about to join a movement of people who understand that abundance is not something you attract, but something you command into manifestation through divine authority. What I'm about to share with you will challenge everything you've been taught about manifestation. You'll discover why every affirmation you've spoken has actually been programming delay into your experience, and how a single command spoken into water can override years of unconscious limitation programming. The secret lies not in the water itself, but in the consciousness from which you approach it. There's a weight in your chest that you carry everywhere, isn't there? That cold, heavy sensation that settles behind your ribs every time an unexpected bill appears in your mailbox, every time you calculate whether you can afford something you genuinely need, every time you watch others spend freely while you count every dollar twice. This weight has become so familiar that you've almost forgotten what it feels like to breathe without it pressing down on your lungs. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a river that should be flowing freely toward the ocean, but instead you find it dammed up, stagnant, covered with the scum of stillness. The water wants to flow. Its very nature demands movement. But something invisible blocks its path. This is your relationship with money right now. Abundance wants to flow to you with the same natural force that drives water toward the sea, but invisible barriers made of years of asking instead of commanding have created a dam in the very stream meant to nourish your life. You've been taught to approach prosperity like a child approaching a stern parent, hat in hand, voice tentative, hoping not to be dismissed. Please, universe, if it's not too much trouble, could you maybe send me some money? Do you hear the powerlessness in those words? Do you feel how that energy creates distance between you and what should be yours by divine right? Every please is an admission of separation. Every hope is a confirmation that you don't currently have what you're requesting. The shame burns, doesn't it? The shame of being an adult who still worries about money, who still feels that flutter of panic when checking bank balances, who still makes excuses for why you can't join friends for experiences that others take for granted. You've been conditioned to believe this struggle is normal, even virtuous, that somehow suffering around money makes you more spiritual, more humble, more deserving of eventual blessing. But what if that conditioning is the very thing keeping abundance at arm's length? What if your humility around money is actually pride masquerading as spirituality, the pride of someone who believes they know better than infinite supply how much they should receive and when they should receive it? What if every moment you spend in financial anxiety is a moment you're unconsciously commanding the universe to maintain your limitations? The air around you feels thick when bills arrive, thick like breathing through wet wool, suffocating your natural ability to think clearly about solutions. Your shoulders carry the invisible weight of every financial worry, creating a posture of defeat that broadcasts your limitations to everyone you encounter. People can sense financial desperation the same way they can sense any other form of fear. It radiates from your energy field like a warning signal that pushes opportunities away rather than attracting them toward you. You've become trapped in what Genevieve Behrend called the cycle of supplication, a pattern where your requests for abundance actually reinforce the very lack you're trying to escape. Every time you ask for money, you're affirming that you don't have it. Every time you hope for prosperity, you're confirming that it's not currently your reality. Every time you beg the universe for relief, you're positioning yourself as someone who needs relief rather than someone who naturally commands supply. The most insidious part of this cycle is how it disguises itself as spiritual practice. You've been told that asking humbly shows proper respect for cosmic law, that hoping patiently demonstrates your faith, that accepting your current limitations proves your surrender to divine will. But none of this is true. True spiritual law operates through divine authority, not human begging. The universe responds to commands issued from your royal nature, not requests whispered from your wounded self. Right now, as you listen to these words, you can feel something stirring beneath the weight of all that accumulated financial fear. It's not hope. Hope is still too passive, too uncertain. It's recognition. Recognition that you've been approaching this entire situation from the wrong end of the power spectrum, that you've been trying to climb a ladder while positioned at the bottom when you actually belong at the top, commanding the ladder to rise beneath your feet. But just as water always finds a way around obstacles, just as every seed carries within it the memory of the full-grown tree, there exists a way to dissolve these barriers and restore the natural flow of abundance into your experience. The key lies not in asking more effectively, but in remembering who you truly are in relation to the infinite supply that surrounds every human life. I need to tell you about Barbara, a single mother from Phoenix who discovered this principle during what she called the darkest financial period of her life. 3 months behind on rent, car payment overdue, credit cards maxed out, and her daughter needing school supplies that might as well have cost $1 million for all the impossibility Barbara felt about purchasing them. She had tried everything the manifestation community recommended. Vision boards filled her apartment walls with images of abundance that mocked her daily struggle. Gratitude journals overflowed with forced appreciation for blessings she couldn't quite feel while her electricity was about to be shut off. Affirmations rolled off her tongue like empty prayers spoken to a deaf sky, each repetition feeling more hollow than the last. One Tuesday evening, after another day of phone calls from creditors and rejection letters from loan applications, Barbara found herself standing in her kitchen staring at a glass of water she'd poured but forgotten to drink. Something about the stillness of the water's surface caught her attention. How it reflected the kitchen light like a mirror. How it waited without judgment or demand for whatever would happen next. Without understanding why, she picked up the glass and instead of her usual pleading affirmation, spoke with a voice that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her usual consciousness. Water, you will carry my command to the universe. I do not ask for money. I command it to flow to me now. The words surprised her with their authority. She had never spoken to the universe like this before, never claimed power over her circumstances rather than begging them to change. She drank the water slowly, feeling each swallow not as hydration, but as the physical act of consuming her own command, integrating it into every cell of her body. Something shifted in her chest, not hope, not even belief, but a strange certainty that what she had spoken was already accomplished in realms beyond her visible experience. Within 18 hours, Barbara's phone rang with a call that changed everything. A company she had interviewed with 6 months earlier, a position she had assumed was filled, suddenly had an opening. Not just any opening. The previous candidate had withdrawn at the last moment, and they needed someone to start immediately. The salary was double what she had been earning at her previous job, with a signing bonus that would cover all her overdue bills and leave her with more money in savings than she had ever accumulated in her entire adult life. But what struck Barbara most profoundly was not the external change. It was the internal transformation that had preceded it. From the moment she spoke that command into the water, she felt like a different person. Not someone hoping for rescue, but someone who naturally expected abundance to respond to her authority. Not someone asking for favors from a distant universe, but someone claiming what already belonged to her by divine inheritance. The job offer was simply the universe's immediate response to her shift from supplication to command. Barbara later told me that the most important moment was not when the phone rang with the job offer, but when she lifted that glass of water and finally spoke to reality from her true position in the hierarchy of creation, not as a beggar seeking charity, but as divine consciousness temporarily wearing human form, commanding the elements to serve its highest expression. This is what becomes possible when you understand that water is not just a physical substance, but a conductor of consciousness, a medium through which your divine authority can be transmitted into the material realm with precision and speed that bypasses all the mental limitations that have been blocking your financial breakthrough. And if such a simple shift in consciousness combined with speaking one command into a glass of water could create such immediate transformation for Barbara, imagine what becomes possible when you apply this same principle with full understanding of how it operates at the deepest levels of spiritual law. But we are only beginning to uncover the profound mechanisms that make this ancient technology so devastatingly effective against financial limitation. The difference between Barbara's breakthrough and what you're about to discover is like the difference between striking a single match and igniting an entire bonfire. Her story proves the principle works, but what comes next will show you how to amplify its power beyond anything you've previously imagined possible. Genevieve Behrend understood something about the nature of reality that most spiritual teachers either miss entirely or fail to communicate clearly. The universe operates as a hierarchy of command, not a democracy of requests. At the top of this hierarchy sits infinite consciousness, what some call God, others call Source, but which functions regardless of what name you assign it. This consciousness doesn't negotiate, doesn't consider petitions, doesn't weigh pros and cons. It simply responds to whatever command is issued with authentic divine authority. Most people position themselves at the bottom of this hierarchy, approaching abundance like servants requesting favors from distant masters. They speak tentatively, ask humbly, and wait patiently for responses that may or may never come. But Genevieve discovered that human consciousness, when properly aligned, occupies a position of divine authority in this hierarchy, not as supplicants, but as commanders of the very forces that create material experience. When you combine this understanding with the scientific reality that water is the most receptive medium for consciousness transmission, you create what Genevieve called divine technology, the practical application of spiritual law through physical elements. Water doesn't just remember the vibrations it encounters. It actively amplifies and transmits them into the quantum field, where all possibilities exist simultaneously, waiting for authoritative commands to collapse them into manifest form. Think of consciousness as electricity and water as the perfect conductor for that electrical current. When you speak to water from your authentic divine authority, you're not making requests. You're programming a living medium with the precise frequency signature that will reorganize reality to match your command. The water carries this frequency signature into your cellular structure when you drink it, aligning every aspect of your being with the reality you have commanded rather than the limitation you have been unconsciously perpetuating. This is radically different from traditional manifestation techniques that rely on repetition to eventually convince your subconscious mind of new beliefs. Those methods assume you're starting from a position of lack and trying to build toward abundance. But divine command technology recognizes that abundance already exists in its complete form in the realm of infinite possibility. Your job is not to create it, but to command its manifestation with the authority that is your birthright as consciousness itself, expressing through human form. The key lies in understanding the difference between asking and commanding. When you ask for something, you automatically create separation between yourself and what you desire. The very act of asking implies that you don't currently have it and must convince someone or something external to provide it. But when you command something, you speak from the position of someone who already possesses the authority to determine what will be, regardless of current appearances. Genevieve taught her students to approach prosperity the same way a king approaches his treasury, not requesting access, but commanding the doors to open because the treasury already belongs to him. The water ritual works because it allows you to speak from this royal consciousness rather than from the peasant mentality that has been keeping abundance at a distance. Water responds to consciousness the way iron responds to magnetism, immediately, completely, without resistance or delay. When you hold a glass of water and speak to it from your divine authority, you're creating what quantum physicists might call observer effect at the molecular level. Your consciousness literally reorganizes the water's structure to carry the exact frequency pattern that will attract the material manifestation of your command. This is not metaphor or wishful thinking. This is practical spiritual science that produces measurable results within specific timeframes because it aligns with fundamental laws rather than fighting against them. You are not trying to manifest something that doesn't exist. You are commanding the manifestation of something that already exists in perfect completion, in the realm where all possibilities await recognition by consciousness operating at the appropriate level of authority. Write these words in the comments to signal your readiness to operate from divine command rather than human supplication. I align now. These 3 words represent your conscious choice to step out of the begging mentality and into the royal consciousness that is your natural state when properly understood. The moment has arrived to transform theoretical understanding into practical command. What you're about to learn is not another manifestation technique. It is a precise spiritual technology that operates through divine law rather than human hope. Approach this with the reverence you would show when handling any powerful instrument, knowing that the consciousness you bring to this process determines the speed and magnitude of your results. Find a quiet space where you can work without interruption. This is not because the ritual requires silence, but because your initial commands deserve the same focused attention you would give to any important communication. Pour exactly 8 ounces of room temperature water into a clear glass. The temperature matters because it allows you to hold the glass comfortably while maintaining full contact with the water's energy field. Hold the glass in both hands, feeling the weight of the water, the smoothness of the glass surface, the subtle coolness against your palms. Close your eyes and take 3 deliberate breaths. not to relax or center yourself, but to establish your presence as divine consciousness temporarily focused through human awareness. You are not preparing to ask for something. You are preparing to command reality from your authentic position of spiritual authority. Now, open your eyes and look directly at the water's surface. See your reflection there, but understand that what you're seeing is not just your physical form. It's infinite consciousness recognizing itself in material form. Speak these words with absolute authority, not as someone hoping they might work, but as someone who knows they have already worked in the realm where all results first occur. Water, I command you to carry my authority into every realm of manifestation. I do not request abundance. I command it to flow to me now. I do not hope for prosperity. I decree its immediate appearance in my experience. Money obeys me because I am divine consciousness, expressing through material form. This command is already complete in all dimensions of reality. As you speak these words, visualize them not as sounds traveling through air, but as living frequencies penetrating every molecule of water in your hands. See the water becoming luminous with command energy, transforming from ordinary liquid into a conductor of divine will. Feel the authority in your voice growing stronger with each word, not because you're trying to convince anything, but because you're recognizing the power that has always been available to consciousness operating at its appropriate level. Now drink the water slowly, but not meditatively. Drink it deliberately, knowing that each swallow is integrating your command into every cell of your body. You are not just hydrating your physical form. You are installing a new operating system in your consciousness that recognizes abundance as your natural state, rather than something you must acquire from external sources. As the last drop of water enters your system, speak this final command. It is done. Reality now aligns with this command in the shortest time possible for my highest good. I receive what I have commanded within 48 hours or less. Place the empty glass down with the same authority you would use to sign an important document. You have not performed a ritual hoping for results. You have issued a direct command to the universe from your position as divine consciousness. And the universe has no choice but to comply, because spiritual law operates through hierarchy, not negotiation. Patricia from Seattle applied exactly this process on a Wednesday evening when her rent was due Friday and she had $37 in her bank account. She had never spoken to water with command authority before, had never approached the universe from a position of spiritual dominion rather than human desperation. But something in her recognized the truth of these principles, and she performed the ritual with complete commitment to its effectiveness. Thursday morning, Patricia received an email from a client she had worked with 2 years earlier. They had an urgent project, needed it completed within 24 hours, and were willing to pay 3 times her usual rate because of the timeline. By Thursday evening, Patricia had earned enough not only to pay her rent, but to cover all her bills for the next month, with money left over for the first time in years. The key to Patricia's success was not the water itself, but the consciousness from which she approached the water. She didn't ask it to help her manifest money. She commanded it to carry her divine authority into manifestation, knowing that abundance was already hers by spiritual law and simply needed to be claimed rather than requested. What you're witnessing in her story is not luck or coincidence, but the precise operation of spiritual law responding to authentic command consciousness. But Patricia's breakthrough was only the beginning of what becomes possible when you understand the deeper layers of this process. There are timing mechanisms, amplification techniques, and authority protocols that can multiply these results exponentially. The foundation has been laid, but the full architecture of command prosperity is far more sophisticated than what Patricia discovered through that single Wednesday evening ritual. There exists a precise timing mechanism in the universe that most people never recognize because they're focused on hoping rather than commanding. When divine consciousness issues an authentic command, the manifestation process begins immediately in the realm of causation, but requires exactly 48 hours to complete its translation into material form. This is not arbitrary timing. It represents the natural rhythm of spiritual law, converting consciousness into matter. Understanding this 48-hour window is crucial because it prevents the doubt and impatience that typically sabotage manifestation work. When you know that your command is already moving through the necessary dimensions to appear in your physical experience, you can maintain the consciousness of completion rather than falling back into the anxiety of waiting for something that might or might not happen. Think of this process like sending an overnight letter to someone in another country. The moment you place the letter in the mail system, it begins its journey toward its destination. You don't stand at the mailbox wondering if the postal service will decide to deliver it or checking constantly to see if it has arrived yet. You know it's moving through the system according to established protocols, and you trust the timing required for international delivery. The 48-hour manifestation window operates according to the same principle. When you issue a command from authentic divine authority, that command immediately enters what Genevieve Behrend called the machinery of manifestation, a precise system through which consciousness converts itself into material experience. The timing is never early, never late, always exact, because spiritual law operates with mathematical precision rather than emotional flexibility. During these 48 hours, several profound processes occur simultaneously. First, your command reorganizes the quantum field of possibilities surrounding your life, shifting probable futures to align with what you have decreed rather than what you have been unconsciously perpetuating through limitation thinking. Second, the water you consumed becomes a cellular carrier of your command frequency, aligning your entire physical system with abundance consciousness rather than scarcity programming. Third, and most importantly, your energy field broadcasts your new command frequency to everyone in your environment, causing people to respond differently to you without their conscious awareness of why. The person who might offer you an opportunity, the client who might call with unexpected work, the friend who might mention exactly what you need to know, all of these individuals begin feeling subtle shifts in how they relate to your presence because you're no longer emanating the frequency of someone who needs help, but rather someone who naturally commands resources. Modern neuroscience has discovered that the human nervous system requires approximately 48 hours to fully integrate new patterns of electrical activity. When you speak your command into water and consume it, you're literally rewiring your brain's default response patterns around money, shifting from survival anxiety to abundance expectancy. The brain needs this specific time frame to establish new neural pathways while releasing the electrochemical patterns associated with financial fear. This is why you must protect your consciousness during the 48-hour integration period. Any return to old patterns of thinking, speaking, or feeling about money can interrupt the manifestation process, not because you lack faith, but because you're sending mixed signals to a system that responds to consistency rather than intermittent commitment. You've issued a command. Now maintain the consciousness of someone whose command has already been fulfilled. The most common mistake people make during this crucial window is monitoring for results. They check their bank balance multiple times per day, analyze every phone call for signs of breakthrough, interpret every interaction as potential evidence that their command is working or not working. But this monitoring consciousness actually slows the manifestation process because it's based on the assumption that results are uncertain rather than inevitable. Instead, live these 48 hours from the consciousness of someone whose command has already been completed in the realm of causation and is simply following natural law in its translation to material form. Make decisions from abundance consciousness rather than scarcity fear. Speak about money from the position of someone who naturally expects prosperity rather than someone hoping to escape limitation. Move through daily activities with the quiet confidence of divine consciousness temporarily wearing human form. The phrase that seals this understanding in your awareness is this: never early, never late, always exact. Repeat this to yourself whenever doubt attempts to question the timing or effectiveness of your command. You haven't asked for anything that might be granted or denied. You have commanded something that is already accomplished and simply following natural law in its manifestation sequence. As your command moves through the 48-hour manifestation window, your mind will present exactly 7 forms of resistance designed to test whether you truly understand your divine authority or still identify with human limitation. These resistances appear automatically because the part of consciousness invested in struggle cannot comprehend abundance as a natural state, and will attempt to sabotage any process that threatens its familiar patterns of thinking and being. The first resistance appears as intellectual doubt. This is too simple to work. Real change requires more effort, more time, more complexity. When this voice speaks, thank it for sharing its concern. Then remind yourself that spiritual law operates through authority, not effort. The universe responds to commands issued from divine consciousness, not to the amount of human energy expended trying to make things happen. Your response: thank you for sharing. My command is already complete. The second resistance emerges as social anxiety. What if someone finds out I'm talking to water? What if people think I've lost my mind? This fear reveals the degree to which you've been allowing other people's opinions to determine your relationship with spiritual law. Divine consciousness doesn't consult human judgment when exercising its natural authority over material circumstances. Your response: what others think has no power over divine law. My command is already complete. The third resistance manifests as logical analysis. How can speaking to water actually change my bank account? This doesn't make scientific sense. But you're not operating according to material science. You're applying spiritual law that supersedes physical limitations. Consciousness creates matter, not the other way around. Your command has already reorganized the quantum field of possibilities surrounding your financial experience. Your response: logic serves matter, but I command from spirit. My command is already complete. The fourth resistance appears as comparison. If this works so well, why isn't everyone wealthy? Why do spiritual people still struggle with money? This question reveals the assumption that spiritual law operates according to human fairness rather than consciousness development. Most people never discover their divine authority because they remain invested in supplication rather than command. Your response: others' experiences do not limit my divine inheritance. My command is already complete. The fifth resistance emerges as impatience. It's been 12 hours and nothing has happened. Maybe I didn't do it right. Maybe I need to repeat the ritual. But impatience is simply doubt disguised as urgency. Your command is following precise spiritual timing that cannot be accelerated through anxiety or repeated through uncertainty. Your response: divine timing is perfect timing. My command is already complete. The sixth resistance appears as the final test. What if this doesn't work? What if I'm just fooling myself? What if nothing changes? This is the ultimate challenge to your understanding of divine authority. You haven't requested something that might be granted or denied. You have commanded something from your position as consciousness itself, expressing through material form. Your response: I have not asked, I have commanded. My command cannot fail because I am divine consciousness in expression. The seventh and most subtle resistance emerges as false humility. Maybe I don't deserve this much abundance. Maybe I should be satisfied with less. Maybe asking for money is somehow unspiritual. But this is not humility. It's pride masquerading as virtue. True humility recognizes that infinite consciousness expresses through individual awareness, and that limiting this expression serves no one. Your response: my abundance serves the highest good of all. My command is already complete. When any of these resistances appear, do not argue with them or try to convince them of anything. Simply acknowledge their presence, speak your response, then immediately return your attention to the scene of yourself drinking the water while issuing your command. See that moment as already complete, already effective, already producing the results that are now moving through the manifestation system toward your material experience. The key insight that neutralizes all resistance is this: you are not trying to make something happen that might or might not work. You have issued a command from divine authority that is already complete in the realm of causation and is simply following natural law in its translation to material form. Nothing can stop this process except your own return to supplication consciousness after having claimed command authority. Leave this comment to demonstrate your readiness to move through all 7 resistances. I am ready for all 7. This declaration signals your commitment to maintain command consciousness regardless of what thoughts, feelings, or circumstances attempt to pull you back into limitation patterns during the crucial integration period. Once you understand the basic water command process, there exist 5 additional techniques that can amplify the power of your original decree, accelerating manifestation timing and increasing the magnitude of results. These amplifiers work by multiplying the frequency signature of your command through additional consciousness technologies that compound the effectiveness of your initial water programming. The first amplifier involves combining water with a physical object that represents your desired outcome. Place a coin, dollar bill, or small piece of jewelry in contact with your glass while speaking your command. The object serves as an anchor point for your command frequency in the material realm, creating dual transmission channels, one through water into your cellular system, another through matter into your environmental energy field. The physical object remembers your command and continues broadcasting its frequency even after you've consumed the water. The second amplifier engages mirror consciousness during the command process. Hold your glass of water while standing in front of a mirror, maintaining eye contact with your reflection as you speak your decree. You are not talking to your physical image. You are communicating directly with infinite consciousness, recognizing itself through individual form. This creates what Genevieve called doubled authority, where your command operates simultaneously through personal awareness and universal recognition. The third amplifier works through cyclical reinforcement throughout the 48-hour manifestation window. Every 3 hours, drink 3 sips of water while silently repeating your original command. You are not repeating because the original command wasn't sufficient. You are maintaining consistent command frequency while your decree completes its translation process. Each cycle strengthens the authority transmission and prevents dilution through unconscious limitation thinking. The fourth amplifier involves family field activation. If you live with others, prepare a large pitcher of water using the same command process. Then serve this water to family members during meals without explaining what you've done. Their consumption of commanded water creates a household frequency that supports your manifestation while protecting against environmental resistance that might otherwise slow your results. The entire family begins unconsciously supporting your abundance without knowing why they feel more optimistic about financial possibilities. The fifth amplifier utilizes scent anchoring to create sensory triggers for command consciousness. Light a specific candle or incense while performing your water ritual, allowing the scent to become associated with the feeling of divine authority in your nervous system. Throughout the 48-hour window, briefly encountering this same scent will automatically trigger your consciousness to return to the command state rather than drifting into doubt or limitation thinking. Linda from Portland discovered the power of amplification when she combined the basic water command with the mirror technique during a particularly challenging financial crisis. Not only did her original command manifest within 36 hours through an unexpected insurance settlement, but the amplified authority she experienced transformed her relationship with money permanently. She reported feeling like money's favorite person, rather than someone who had to struggle for financial resources. The key to working with amplifiers effectively is understanding that you're not trying harder or doing more. You're creating additional channels through which your original command can express itself in material form. Each amplifier multiplies the authority of your decree rather than adding desperation to it. Use them from the consciousness of someone whose command is already complete and who is simply optimizing the manifestation process. The universal amplifier mantra that works with all 5 techniques is this: wealth is my nature. Repeat this phrase silently while applying any amplifier method. You are not trying to convince yourself that wealth is your nature. You are recognizing a truth about consciousness itself, expressing through individual awareness. Wealth consciousness is not something you acquire. It's something you remember you have always been. Comment these words to activate amplification in your own manifestation process. I choose to amplify my abundance. This declaration signals your readiness to work with advanced command technologies rather than limiting yourself to basic manifestation approaches. But amplification is only the beginning of what becomes possible when you truly understand the mathematics of spiritual law. There are signs, timing sequences, and breakthrough patterns that reveal exactly how consciousness creates material experience through command authority. What Linda discovered about her transformed relationship with money is just a glimpse of the complete identity shift that awaits anyone who fully grasps these principles. Before your command completes its full manifestation within the 48-hour window, the universe will present you with subtle signs that your decree has been received and is now moving through the translation process from consciousness to matter. These signs appear not to convince you that something might happen, but to confirm that something has already happened in the realm of causation and is simply following natural law in its appearance sequence. The first category of signs appears as monetary synchronicities. You might find coins in unexpected places, receive small unexpected refunds, discover money in forgotten locations, or notice repeated appearances of specific dollar amounts on receipts, license plates, or digital displays. These are not random coincidences. They represent the universe's way of confirming that your command has successfully reorganized the probability field surrounding your financial experience. The second category manifests as communication shifts. People begin speaking differently around you about money, opportunities, and resources. Someone might casually mention exactly the information you need to pursue a profitable venture. A conversation you overhear might contain the precise solution to a financial challenge you've been facing. Emails or text messages arrive with tone or content that feels surprisingly aligned with abundance consciousness rather than limitation thinking. The third category appears through behavioral changes in your environment. Individuals who normally avoid financial topics might suddenly share opportunities with you. People who usually guard their resources carefully might offer unexpected generosity or support. Business associates might present collaborations they had not previously considered. The frequency of your command is literally attracting responses from consciousness, expressing through other individuals. Dorothy from Denver experienced all three sign categories within the first 24 hours after performing her water command ritual. She found a $20 bill while walking her dog, received a call from a former colleague about a consulting opportunity, and overheard two strangers discussing exactly the type of business she had been wanting to start. Most significantly, her landlord called to mention that her rent would be reduced for the next 6 months due to a property tax adjustment she had known nothing about. But here's what Dorothy later realized was the most important sign. She felt different. Not hopeful about money, not excited about possibilities, but settled in a new way of being that expected abundance as naturally as expecting sunrise. This internal shift preceded all the external confirmations, and it represented the most reliable indicator that her command had successfully established new baseline consciousness around financial experience. The signs always appear in order of subtlety to obviousness, testing whether you can recognize divine response without requiring dramatic proof. If you need flashy confirmation to believe your command is working, you're still operating from doubt consciousness rather than command authority. But when you can recognize the subtle signatures of universal compliance, you demonstrate the consciousness that attracts increasingly obvious manifestations. During the final 12 hours before your command reaches complete material manifestation, you may experience what Genevieve called the last resistance surge. This appears as intensified doubt, unexpected financial challenges that seem to contradict your command, or circumstances that appear designed to make you question whether the process is actually working. This is not evidence that your command has failed. It's proof that old limitation consciousness is making its final attempt to maintain familiar patterns before new abundance patterns establish themselves permanently. Nancy from Austin experienced this exact phenomenon when, 30 hours after her water command, she received notice that her car needed expensive repairs she couldn't afford. Instead of interpreting this as evidence that her ritual hadn't worked, Nancy recognized it as the final test of her commitment to command consciousness. She responded by affirming, "This temporary appearance cannot override my divine decree. My command is complete, and this situation will resolve in perfect alignment with my commanded abundance." 18 hours later, Nancy received 2 phone calls. The first was from the repair shop, explaining that they had mistakenly diagnosed her car and the actual repair would cost only $50 instead of the original estimate of $800. The second call was from a client offering her a project that would pay exactly enough to cover all her monthly expenses, plus the money she had been wanting to save for a vacation she thought was impossible. The pattern is always the same. Signs appear, resistance surfaces one final time, then breakthrough arrives with precision that demonstrates the mathematical nature of spiritual law. Your command doesn't struggle against obstacles. It reorganizes circumstances so that obstacles dissolve naturally while solutions appear effortlessly. As you approach the completion of your 48-hour manifestation window, pay attention to dreams, sudden ideas, or intuitive promptings that guide you toward specific actions. Your command may manifest through opportunities that require your participation, but the participation will feel easy, natural, aligned rather than forced or desperate. You are not working to make your command happen, you are cooperating with its natural unfolding. But the most profound sign that your command has reached complete activation is the disappearance of anxiety around the outcome. When you no longer feel the need to check for results, when you stop calculating timelines, when you naturally expect abundance without effort or strain, that's when you know your consciousness has fully integrated the authority from which you spoke your original decree. Beverly from Miami described this state perfectly. It wasn't that I believed the money would come anymore. I simply knew it was already here, just finishing its journey from the invisible to the visible. The waiting stopped because there was nothing to wait for, only something to receive that was already in motion toward me. This is the consciousness that not only manifests your specific command, but establishes a permanent baseline of abundance expectancy that continues attracting prosperity long after your initial 48-hour window has closed. You've not only received what you commanded, you've become someone who commands reality as naturally as breathing. Comment these words to acknowledge your recognition of the signs. The signs are here. This declaration confirms your ability to perceive universal response rather than needing dramatic proof to believe your command is working. But recognizing signs is only the preliminary stage of command mastery. What Nancy discovered about the mathematical precision of spiritual law barely scratches the surface of what becomes possible when you understand the complete sequence of consciousness creating material experience. The final revelation that seals your transformation from supplicant to commander is approaching, and it will establish your new identity so permanently that returning to limitation consciousness becomes literally impossible. The moment has arrived to seal your transformation from someone who asks the universe for abundance to someone who commands reality from divine authority. This sealing is not ceremony. It is recognition of who you have always been beneath the layers of conditioning that taught you to approach prosperity as a supplicant, rather than as consciousness itself expressing through individual form. Place both hands over your heart and speak these words 3 times, allowing your voice to grow in authority with each repetition. First as a whisper, recognizing the truth quietly within yourself. It is finished. It is done. And it cannot be otherwise. Now speak it with firm conviction, as someone who knows their words carry the weight of universal law. It is finished, it is done, and it cannot be otherwise. Finally, declare it with the absolute authority of divine consciousness commanding reality itself. It is finished, it is done, and it cannot be otherwise. Feel these words settling into every cell of your body, every layer of your awareness, every aspect of your relationship with abundance. You have not requested something that might be granted. You have recognized something that has always been true and commanded its immediate manifestation in your material experience. Now seal your new identity with this declaration of permanent transformation. I am a natural receiver. I always receive what serves my highest good. Money flows to me easily because I am divine consciousness expressing through material form. I command abundance not because I have learned a technique, but because I have remembered who I am. Wealth consciousness is not something I acquired, it is something I have always been. This is no longer hope or positive thinking or manifestation work. This is your recognition of spiritual fact operating through natural law. You do not hope for abundance, You expect it as naturally as you expect gravity to hold you to the earth. You do not wonder if prosperity will come. You know it is already here in the realm of causation, simply completing its translation into material form according to perfect timing. The water you commanded has become part of your cellular structure, carrying the frequency of divine authority into every aspect of your being. Your nervous system now defaults to abundance expectancy rather than scarcity anxiety. Your energy field broadcasts command consciousness rather than supplication mentality. Your voice carries the authority of someone who knows their words shape reality rather than someone hoping their requests might be heard. If this teaching has awakened your recognition of divine authority and your natural right to command abundance rather than beg for it, then you belong in this community of consciousness that understands manifestation as practical spiritual science rather than wishful thinking. Subscribe to this channel because you are now part of a movement that approaches prosperity from dominion rather than desperation, from authority rather than anxiety, from command rather than pleading. Your subscription represents more than engagement with content. It signals your conscious choice to align with others who understand that you are not trying to attract abundance from outside yourself, but recognizing abundance as your true nature, expressing itself through individual awareness. Together, we are demonstrating that spiritual law operates through hierarchy of consciousness rather than democracy of opinion. In exactly 48 hours from the moment you performed your water command ritual, return to this video and leave a comment sharing your breakthrough experience. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but to add your testimony to the growing evidence that consciousness truly does create material experience when operated from authentic divine authority rather than human limitation. Your comment will serve as encouragement for others who are still learning to distinguish between asking and commanding, between hoping and knowing, between requesting favors and claiming inheritance. Your breakthrough becomes part of the collective field that makes it easier for the next person to step out of supplication consciousness and into the royal awareness that is their birthright. But understand this clearly. Your comment is not required for your command to work. Your abundance does not depend on sharing your experience or convincing anyone else of anything. Your prosperity flows from divine law, responding to divine authority, period. Share your results only if doing so serves your joy and contributes to the collective awakening of command consciousness. The glass of water sits empty now, but its work continues in every cell of your body, in every thought you think about money, in every decision you make about resources. In every moment you choose to recognize yourself as divine consciousness, expressing through human experience rather than as human limitation, hoping for divine rescue. You have crossed a threshold tonight that cannot be uncrossed. You have remembered something about yourself that cannot be forgotten. You have spoken words that cannot be unspoken, issued commands that cannot be unissued, claimed authority that cannot be unclaimed. From this moment forward, whenever doubt attempts to question your divine right to abundance, whenever circumstances appear to contradict your command, whenever others suggest that financial struggle is normal or virtuous, simply remember this moment. Remember the authority in your voice when you commanded the water. Remember the certainty that settled in your chest as you spoke your decree. Remember who you discovered yourself to be when you finally stopped asking and started commanding. The water heard you. The universe received your command. Reality is already reorganizing itself to match your decree. Your abundance is not coming. It is already here, simply completing its manifestation according to the perfect timing of spiritual law. And so it is.